This is the Monday agenda with me, Finganwa Simbeye. Today we're going to look at bilateral relations between India and Tanzania. And with me in the studio is Indian High Commissioner Sandeep Arya. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting me.
How do you describe the relations, bilateral relations between Tanzania and India at this point in time?
I think our relations are extremely strong, very positive, and I think they are moving up very, very rapidly in a very good direction in all possible elements of the relationship, in terms of political relationship, in terms of economic and business relationship, in terms of partnership for development, in terms of cultural and people level contacts, and all areas we are moving very well, and I think things are looking good. Particularly after our Prime Minister visited Tanzania last year in July, about 1 year back, on a state visit to Tanzania, and I think that visit gave lot of impetus, lot of direction to the areas on which we need to focus, and I think we are moving very well on many of those areas.
As India now is marking 70 years of independence, I know we have a lot of areas where you can assist Tanzania to move faster in the development agenda. What exactly are you looking at after the Prime Minister's visit in the next 5 years?
Yeah. Thank you for referring to our independence, which we are celebrating on 15th August, which is Tuesday. And it is a very important landmark for India, because it is a journey of these 70 years from the time of independence, in which we have made huge strides in different areas, in terms of the polity of the country, in terms of economy of the country, in terms of social development in the country. And I think but we are still a developing country, and there is a long way to go for us, and I think it was reflected in our Prime Minister's call that we should all take a resolve to really attain, and he has set a goal for 5 years time from now, for 2022, when we will have our 75th anniversary, to have an India which is free of dirt, free of poverty, free of communalism, free of corruption, free of terrorism, and to have a very strong, prosperous and inclusive India. So I think that's what we are looking at for ourselves, and I think that part is important to know, because as we are cooperating, we have lots of these experiences in the development of India, which we are also trying to bring along and see whether it can also contribute by sharing it with Tanzania. That is, I think, that background for our approach to the relationship is important to know. When we are looking at, I think there are, in each of these areas we are trying to cooperate and do various initiatives in India-Tanzania relationship. These, I think, industrialization drive is an important foundation or important goal for the government of Tanzania, and in that context, I think there are business exchanges, there are economic cooperation going on. The other important area is the development of Tanzania, the nation building and developmental needs, and I think in that sector there are 4 or 5 very, very important initiatives. I can elaborate at some stage into what these are, but I think that is very, very substantive area. Recently we had a couple of very major projects inaugurated, thankfully by President Magufuli himself, by His Excellency, which was, I think, a very good gesture, and that has given a lot of encouragement to do more. And we are also encouraging greater engagement in areas which affect people at large, areas like education, areas like healthcare, areas like cultural exchanges, areas like tourism, and all that, which really, I think, affect all the people on both sides of this. And I think in all these areas we are bringing together India's achievements, India's experiences, and see if they can play a role for the development and progress of Tanzania as a country.
There's a lot for us as a country to learn from India, and particularly in the areas of science and technology, the areas of governance. India is the largest democracy. In your priority areas with Tanzania in the cooperation strategy, which specific areas are going to target here?
I think the number one area, especially with the trends in the last year or two, is the sector of water. On water, we have started we actually completed one project to bring water from the Ruvu River to the city of Dar es Salaam. That has added a capacity of 120 million liters of water every day, which will come. It starts from the pumping station, right from the river. It involves water treatment, it involves reservoirs, it involves distribution and all. That is a project in the month of June, which President Magufuli inaugurated, and I think that was an important landmark of something already achieved for a cost of about $100 million over the last 2.5 years. The new project which we have started construction, which happened actually about 15 days back, was in Tabora. It is basically Lake Victoria water pipeline extension project, so that water will come to the towns of Tabora, Nizega and Igunga, and also cover about 80 villages which are on the way. So it also involves again pumping, it involves reservoirs, it involves water treatment, it involves distribution channels within the city of Tabora, within the towns of Nizega, Igunga, etc. It's a huge project which is at a budget of $260 million, which are financed by the Exim Bank of India and is being executed by some of our best companies. So that's another big thing. We have a few other projects in the field of water which are already in the pipeline, which are approved, and we are in the process of taking next steps. So India's commitment to the water sector itself will be upward of $1 billion, which is a huge sum of money, especially for a country which is itself a developing country.
Water is very important to us, but we also are having problems with the education. And I was trying to look at how are you going to also focus on the education sector, because you may have a healthy society which is ignorant and it's almost equal to zero for development. How are you going to assist us bilaterally in the education sector?
Thank you for that question, actually, because I personally have lots of strong feelings on the sector of education in this, and I think what India's experience over last 70 years has taught us, that education is the sector number one, is the core of the development for any country, of the core of nation building, at the core of progress, prosperity and everything else. Especially the way the world is evolving, the world is moving towards knowledge economy, moving towards use of technology, value addition, innovation, etc. So lots of the future economic growth will be centered around those achievements in technology, in sciences, and they are really based on how good an education system which you are able to build. And I think we have had good visionary leadership which has really given a lot of emphasis, and I think our achievements speak for themselves in terms of Indians who are running or who are in very senior positions in management around the world, in major companies, etc. In terms of our own contributions in sectors like information and communication technology, in sectors like pharmaceuticals, healthcare, all of them again have a very strong foundation of education, a very strong education system. When we look at, I think we are encouraged also by President Magufuli and his government's drive to develop the sector of education, and I think that has given us a few ideas into what we can try to do. We have, I think as of now, we have set up 2 information technology centers. The first one was done at the Dar es Salaam Institute of Technology about 6 years back. And I think some months back, we completed this information technology center at the Nelson Mandela African Institute of Science and Technology in Arusha. It will, I think this center, which has been set up by as a grant project by India, will provide master's degree courses in information technology. So I think it's a very good addition. We are looking at further projects of that kind in terms of setting up facility and capacities for education. The other thing which we, I think, realized was that maths and science is also a focus area. Really, lots of technology and innovation happens around those subjects, and we sense that there might be need and value by bringing Indian books or make them available for reference, because maths and science is the same globally. So what we had this function in the morning today when we have kind of handed over about 80,000 books for maths and sciences for Form 3, Form 4, Form 5 and Form 6 for maths and sciences, subjects of, sub-branches of sciences like physics, chemistry and biology. So this was a very, very small gesture. We thought these books may play a small role for the students in Tanzania, secondary school students. We also have various training programs and some scholarships. We have about 25 people who travel to India in various fields for bachelor's, master's and PhD degrees in India, which is fully sponsored by the government of India. And we have some short-term courses. About 400 people travel to India every year for these courses, which can be from maybe 2 to 3 weeks duration to about 6 months duration for various things, which are also fully supported by the government of India. So these are the areas in which we also have a small e-learning center at the University of Dar es Salaam. Yes, so it allows you to, basically the students can do lectures and assignments done from universities in India, and they enable these students to basically have also the top class education and maybe in a way pursue dual degrees. They might be registered, for example, at University of Dar es Salaam, and they are also in parallel doing a course also from a university in India and obtain bachelor's or master's degrees from universities in India. We are looking at expansion of this facility e-learning, maybe to take it to maybe about 5 places in Tanzania. So, I think these are kind of some activities which we are undertaking in education, but we are willing in terms of any new ideas which may come up and to take them forward.
Yeah, because much of your excellence comes from investment in education, science and technology, and that's pretty much what can assist Tanzania to actually realize of industrial nation and industrial economy. Yeah. And you have just touched on the use of e-learning, science and technology. A lot of people cannot manage from Tanzania to go to India to get an education, but we may have masses getting knowledge from the Indian lecturers through use of technology, e-learning. And as I have said, you have started at the University of Dar es Salaam. The only problem I see is much of this is state-sponsored. The private sector is not playing, and because the private sector is not playing a big role, sometimes the state seems to get shocked.
Yeah. The way it developed in India also, I think state had to play a very important role, and not just for primary or school education, but also for tertiary education at the university level. Some of our most important institutes, for example, especially from 50s, 60s and 70s, which really have played a critical role in national's development were these government universities. We have these in the field of engineering, these institutes called Indian Institutes of Technologies, and the engineers from these institutes are really so much sought after, etc. You know, many countries including US and Germany, they have created special mechanisms to attract these people for work. Same thing was done in the field of medical education. It was primarily state driven, but of course times have changed. I think the private sector is playing a greater role in India, and I think could play a greater role in Tanzania also. It of course depends upon the kinds of incentives and policies, but I think both needs to be used for the purpose of national development for any country.
Our relations have grown from strength to strength. Now Indian High Commission started like a very tiny room somewhere in the center of Dar es Salaam. Now you have a whole block of flat, which shows that the relations have really grown stronger. But if, as I have said at the beginning, if we look at the other side of private investments, I know the Indian private sector is very competitive, and as you have said, everywhere in the world, people are looking for them. How is it that the government is encouraging some of these private sector people to come over to Tanzania or Africa?
Yeah, I think it's not a straightforward task, especially when the private sector, they make their own assessments, they make their own evaluation of opportunities around the world. I must mention that India itself is a fast growing country, so lots of private sectors of course have huge expansion plans within India in whatever sector they are specializing in to grow and expand in India, in India's neighborhood, and of course around the world wherever opportunities arise. There are major big Indian companies which are operating in Tanzania. You talk of Tata, you talk of Airtel, you talk of NMDC, you talk of Indian banks, you talk of also several, Godrej is another one, and there are groups like Kamal Group, etc. So some of them are already present here, and I am encouraged that they are looking at good future in Tanzania in terms of growing and expanding in their respective sectors. They are also looking at expanding investments in different areas, and a few good projects are under discussion with the government of Tanzania in terms of those coming through. So I think what I hear from the Indian companies operating here, plus what I see in terms of movement of business delegations between India and Tanzania, it looks the flow of people and ideas is good, and also some of the projects which are under discussion, I think, give me a lot of hope that the future of our bilateral trade, bilateral investment, bilateral economic and business linkages is very good and bright.
Talking about bilateral trade and relations, we also, as you've said at the beginning, the government of President Magufuli has said it wants this country to be semi-industrialized within the next 5 to 10 years. I was looking at that field and see how the Indian policies or the your foreign policy is directed towards supporting that goal? Is it possible that you also put an input in trying to push it to support us in the direction of industrialization?
Yeah, I think part of it is, of course, the Indian government companies and basically telling them the opportunities that exist in Tanzania, which we do as part of our own communication with our chambers in India by writing directly to private companies in India, etc. So that work is going on. But the pace at which it will move, of course, will require also the assessments by these companies themselves and all that. And I think we are also encouraging some of the Tanzanian agencies to be going to India and trying to promote, because when the business people hear directly from the government of Tanzania and the government agencies of Tanzania about opportunities and about the encouragement they are giving to the businesses, that will also have a very positive impact on the businesses. We have a few plans in the coming months in that direction, and I think that will also add to the efforts that we are making to really see more Indian companies present and for them to invest and try to be a partner in the industrialization drive of the government of Tanzania.
I was looking at statistics from our own investment center and the Ministry of Trade. It shows that we have had very good trade growth since 2014.
Yeah.
On average 70%.
Yeah.
The data shows. Why do you think at this point in time we're having this growth?
Okay. No, I think this growth has been a little more steady in my assessment. It has been going on for some time, but I think there are 2 or 3 products in which there is very good positive direction. One of them is agricultural related products from Tanzania, things like cashew nut, things like pulses, things like a few other agricultural commodities. Cloves are part of it also. So I think in India the market is expanding and there are greater opportunities, and I think some of the companies are capitalizing on it in terms of really taking advantage of that market which exists in India. So that is one part of it. The second is as Tanzania's economy grows and Tanzania's industrialization takes over, it will require lots of supplies of various kinds. It can be machineries, it can be inputs or raw material for various things and all. I think that is another area in which a lot of progress is happening, because the growth in India's exports of items of metals, items of electrical equipment of various kinds and chemicals, and so those areas I think are feeding into Tanzania's growth, but they are also important component of this growth in the trade in the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Sure, and looking at what you have just said and the statistics as they show, much of what we're exporting, the growth is really big because we're exporting, much of what we're exporting are commodities. And going back to the idea of President Magufuli to have a semi-industrialized, it means we have to semi-process or completely export manufactured goods. And India is one of our biggest markets now. Can we be assured, local producers, that India will continue being our market when we start exporting finished goods?
I think so. I mean, there is a lot of potential in those areas, also manufacturing goods, because India is a growing market. I mean, our economy is growing at above 7% for many, many years, and the future trends are in that direction. And a lot of this growth will require lots of inputs from different